You're sitting there, replaying the conversation for the 100th time. What you said, what they said, what you should have said. Your chest is tight, your jaw clenched. Hours have passed, maybe days, and you're still carrying it like a stone in your pocket. Meanwhile, the person who triggered you, they've moved on. They're sleeping fine, living their life. And you're here, bleeding energy into a moment that's already gone. That's the cost of emotional attachment. Not love, not care, but that desperate grip on outcomes you can't control, on reactions you can't undo, on situations that refuse to bend to your will. The Stoics had a different approach. They called it apatheia, not apathy, not coldness, but freedom. The ability to observe your emotions without being consumed by them, to feel without bleeding, to care without clinging. If you're tired of being held hostage by your feelings, if you want to move through life with clarity instead of chaos, then stay, because what comes next might be the most liberating shift you ever make. And if you're ready to reclaim that kind of power, consider subscribing. For the part of you that's done being dragged, the illusion of control. Let's start with the truth most people avoid. You're attached to things that were never yours to control. Someone's opinion of you, how a situation unfolds, whether people meet your expectations, whether life feels fair. You've built an entire emotional infrastructure around outcomes that exist completely outside your reach. And every time reality doesn't comply, you suffer. Not because reality is cruel, but because you're fighting physics. Epictetus said it plainly. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. But here's what most people miss. Reaction isn't just about anger or sadness. It's about attachment itself. The tighter you grip, the more you bleed when life pulls away. Detachment isn't about feeling nothing. It's about feeling everything and still keeping your center. What detachment actually means. Emotional detachment has been weaponized by people who confuse it with indifference. They think it means shutting down, building walls, going cold. But that's not strength, that's suppression. And suppression always leaks. True detachment is awareness. It's the space between stimulus and response. It's the ability to say, I notice this emotion, I feel it, but I'm not ruled by it. You can love someone deeply and not need them to complete you. You can care about an outcome without being destroyed if it doesn't happen. You can feel anger without letting it write the script. That's the difference. Attachment says, this must go my way or I'm not okay. Detachment says, I'm okay regardless. And that shift, that's where your power lives. #Law 1. Observe without ownership. The first law is simple but brutal. Your emotions are not you. They're weather. They pass through. Some days it rains. Some days the sun breaks through. But you are not the rain. You are not the sun. You're the sky that holds it all. Most people identify so completely with their feelings that they can't tell the difference. When anger shows up, they don't say, I'm feeling anger. They say, I am angry. When sadness arrives, they don't observe it. They become it. And in that collapse, they lose all leverage. But the moment you create even the smallest gap between the emotion and your identity, something changes. You stop being possessed by the feeling. You start witnessing it. And witnessing is the first step toward freedom. The practice. Next time something triggers you, try this. Don't suppress the emotion. Don't analyze it. Just name it, out loud if you can. I'm noticing frustration. I'm feeling rejected. There's anxiety here. That simple act, naming without claiming, creates distance. It reminds your nervous system, this is an experience I'm having, not who I am. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That strength begins with observation, with recognizing that emotions are information, not identity. They tell you something is happening, but they don't get to decide what you do next. The shift. When you stop owning your emotions, you stop defending them. You don't need to justify your anger or explain your sadness or hold on to resentment like proof. You can feel it fully, learn from it, and let it pass. And here's what nobody tells you. Emotions lose their grip the moment you stop resisting them. It's the fight that keeps them alive, the denial, the shame, the desperate need to not feel what you're feeling. But when you observe without judgment, when you let the wave rise and fall without trying to control it, something softens. The emotion completes its cycle. It moves through you, and you remain. That's the art. Feeling deeply, holding lightly. Law 2. Release the need for control. Here's the paradox that breaks most people. The more you try to control, the more chaotic your inner world becomes. You try to control how people see you, how situations unfold, whether your effort gets rewarded, whether people stay or leave. And every time something slips through your fingers, you feel it like a personal failure. But it was never yours to hold. The Stoics divided the world into two categories: what's in your control and what's not. And they were ruthless about it. Your actions, yours. Your character, yours. Your effort, yours. Everything else, outcomes, opinions, circumstances, belongs to the gods, to fate, to the unfolding of things larger than you. Emotional detachment begins when you stop trying to grip what was never meant to be controlled. The cost of clinging. Think about the last time someone disappointed you, really disappointed you. Maybe they didn't meet your expectations. Maybe they chose differently than you hoped. Maybe they just moved on. Notice what you did with that. Did you replay it? Did you try to figure out where you went wrong? Did you spiral into scenarios where things went differently? That's attachment. Not to the person, to the outcome, to the story you wrote in your head where things unfolded your way. But life doesn't owe you that story. People don't owe you their permanence. Situations don't owe you fairness. And the moment you accept that, truly accept it, the weight lifts. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." The suffering isn't in what happened. It's in the grip, in the refusal to let go, in the desperate need for things to be other than they are. The practice of letting go. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. You love people without needing them to stay forever. You work hard without needing guaranteed results. You give your best without demanding recognition. You show up fully, knowing that the outcome was never the point. The point was the showing up. And when you release the grip, when you stop strangling situations with expectation, something strange happens. You become lighter, clearer, more present. Because you're no longer carrying the weight of controlling what you can't. You're free to respond instead of react, to flow instead of force, to adapt instead of break. That's power. Not loud, aggressive power. Quiet power. The kind that doesn't need the world to bend to feel whole. Law 3. Build internal standards. Most people are emotionally unstable because they've outsourced their sense of worth. They feel good when people approve. They feel crushed when people criticize. They feel valuable when things go well. They feel worthless when things fall apart. Their entire emotional state is hostage to external conditions. And those conditions? They change. Constantly. People's moods shift. Circumstances fluctuate. Opinions flip. If your stability depends on any of that, you'll never find solid ground. Emotional detachment requires something different. Internal standards. You define what matters. You define what success looks like. You define your worth based on your character, your effort, your alignment with your values. Not on applause, not on outcomes, not on whether people get it. The Stoic anchor. Epictetus was clear. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. That's not arrogance, it's liberation. It's the refusal to let external judgment dictate your inner state. You know what you're building. You know why you're doing it. You know the kind of person you're becoming. And that knowledge, quiet, private, unshakable, becomes your anchor. When criticism comes, you evaluate it. Is it accurate? Is it useful? If yes, you adjust. If no, you let it pass. Either way, it doesn't shatter you, because your worth isn't on trial. When success comes, you appreciate it, but you don't let it inflate you, because you know external validation is fleeting. What matters is whether you lived by your principles, whether you showed up with integrity, whether you did the thing you said you'd do. The practice. Write down 3 internal standards, not goals, not achievements, standards of character. Maybe it's, I show up even when I don't feel like it. Maybe it's, I speak the truth even when it's uncomfortable. Maybe it's, I treat people with dignity even when they don't deserve it. These aren't things the world can take from you. These aren't dependent on outcomes. These are yours. And when you anchor your emotional state to these, not to likes, not to wins, not to approval, you become untouchable. Not because nothing affects you, but because the things that matter most are within your control. Law 4. Practice premeditation of adversity. The Stoics did something most people find morbid. They imagined the worst. Not to be pessimistic, not to catastrophize, but to prepare, to remove the shock, to strip future pain of its power over them. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." Why? Because if you expect perfection and get chaos, you break. But if you expect difficulty and find grace, you're grateful. Either way, you're not blindsided. The emotional armor. Emotional detachment isn't about avoiding pain. It's about not being ambushed by it. When you practice premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of adversity, you're training your mind to encounter difficulty without collapse. You're rehearsing loss before it arrives. You're imagining criticism, rejection, failure, betrayal, and deciding ahead of time how you'll respond. Not with despair, not with rage, but with composure. This isn't pessimism, it's realism. Life will test you. People will disappoint you. Things will fall apart. That's not a maybe, it's a guarantee. So why pretend otherwise? When you accept that difficulty is part of the contract, you stop feeling victimized by it. You stop asking, why me? And start asking, what now? The practice. Spend 5 minutes imagining something going wrong. Not to dwell, to prepare. What if that project fails? What if they don't choose you? What if you lose what you've built? Feel it. Imagine it. And then ask, would I survive? Would I adapt? Would I find another way? The answer is almost always yes. And once you know that, the fear loses its teeth. You're no longer attached to the perfect outcome. You're committed to moving forward, regardless of what comes. And that commitment? That's the foundation of resilience. Law 5. Embrace impermanence. Everything you love will end. Every person you hold will leave, through distance, through change, through death. Every moment of joy will fade. Every success will become yesterday's news. Every comfort will eventually be stripped away. This isn't nihilism. This is memento mori. Remember you will die. Remember everything will die. And in that remembering, you find freedom. The grip of permanence. Attachment is rooted in the illusion that things should last, that people should stay, that good times should continue indefinitely. But life doesn't work that way. Everything is temporary. Seasons change. Relationships evolve. Bodies age. Empires fall. And when you cling to permanence, when you fight the natural flow of things, you suffer. Not because the loss is happening, but because you believed it wouldn't. Seneca said, "Life is like a play. It's not the length, but the excellence of the acting that matters." If you spend the whole play gripping the script, trying to make it last forever, you miss the beauty of the scene you're in. The practice of appreciation. Detachment doesn't mean you stop valuing things. It means you value them differently. You love people knowing they won't be here forever. And that makes every conversation sacred. You appreciate moments knowing they won't repeat. And that makes them vivid. You stop taking things for granted because you've accepted their impermanence. Next time you're with someone you love, pause. Really look at them. Notice them. And quietly acknowledge, this won't last. One day, this exact moment will be a memory. Does that make you sad? Maybe. But it also makes you present. It pulls you out of distraction and into gratitude. Because when you stop clinging to forever, you start honoring now. Law 6. Transmute emotion into action. Emotional detachment isn't about numbing out, it's about channeling. You feel the anger, but instead of lashing out, you use it to fuel discipline. You feel the fear, but instead of freezing, you use it to sharpen your focus. You feel the sadness, but instead of drowning, you use it to deepen your empathy. Emotions are energy, and energy can be redirected. The Stoic alchemy. The Stoics didn't suppress emotion, they transformed it. They studied their reactions like scientists. They asked, what is this feeling teaching me? What need is it pointing to? How can I honor it without being controlled by it? That's alchemy, turning lead into gold, turning reactive emotion into purposeful action. When someone disrespects you, the reactive response is rage. The detached response is, what boundary needs to be set? What action restores my dignity? When you fail, the reactive response is despair. The detached response is, what lesson is here? What adjustment moves me forward? The practice. Next time you feel something intense, pause. Don't act. Don't suppress. Just ask, what would the wisest version of me do with this energy? Then do that. Maybe it's going for a walk. Maybe it's writing it out. Maybe it's having a difficult conversation with calm clarity. Maybe it's simply sitting with it until it reveals its message. But you don't let it drive. You drive. You take the wheel. You become the one who directs the energy instead of being dragged by it. And over time, that becomes your default. You stop being a victim of your emotions. You become their master. Law 7. Return to silence. The final law is the most overlooked. You need stillness to maintain detachment. Because the world is loud, it's always pulling, always demanding, always provoking. And if you don't create space to return to yourself, you'll lose the thread. Detachment isn't a one-time achievement. It's a practice, a daily return to center, a conscious step back from the noise. The Stoic retreat. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "People seek retreats for themselves in the country, by the sea, or in the mountains." You are very much in the habit of yearning for those same things. But this is entirely the trait of a base person, when you can, at any moment, find such a retreat in yourself. You don't need to escape. You need to return to the quiet part of you that knows, that observes, that remains. That part doesn't live in the chaos. It watches the chaos. It's the still point in a turning world. The practice. Every day, give yourself 5 minutes of silence. No phone, no input, no distraction. Just sit, breathe, notice. Let the noise settle. Let the emotions pass through. Let your mind clear. This isn't meditation in the spiritual sense. It's recalibration. It's reminding yourself who you are beneath the roles, beneath the reactions, beneath the performance. And when you return to the world, you return anchored, not reactive, not desperate, not needing anything from anyone. Just clear, detached, free. Emotional detachment is not a shield, it's a skill. It's the ability to feel everything and still choose your response. To care deeply without being destroyed by outcomes. To love people without needing them to complete you. To engage fully with life without being consumed by it. The Stoics weren't cold. They were clear. They weren't indifferent. They were free. And that freedom is available to you. Not someday. Now. Every time you observe an emotion without becoming it. Every time you release control over what was never yours. Every time you anchor to internal standards instead of external approval. Every time you prepare for adversity instead of being blindsided. Every time you embrace impermanence instead of clinging to forever. Every time you transmute feeling into purposeful action. Every time you return to silence and remember who you are. You're building something. Not armor, not walls, but sovereignty. The quiet authority that comes from knowing you're no longer at the mercy of every wave. You're the ocean. So here's the question to carry forward. What are you still gripping that was never meant to be held? Not to shame yourself, just to see clearly. Because clarity is the first step. The quiet work you do today, learning to feel without bleeding, to care without clinging, to move through the world with presence instead of desperation. That's the work that changes everything. Stay focused, stay grounded, and remember, detachment isn't about feeling less. It's about being free to feel everything without losing yourself in the storm.